All right, well, thank you all. I'm super happy to be here at React Finland. It's been a great experience so far. I really loved day one, and it's great to be a part of this great speaker lineup too. As Yanni mentioned, I am Jamon Holmgren. That is how you pronounce my name, Jamon, just like Jason, but with an M. And I am the co-founder and CTO at infinitered. You can find me on Twitter at Jamon Holmgren. I'm pretty active on Twitter and love connecting with people there. A little bit more about me. I live near Portland, Oregon in the beautiful Pacific Northwest in the USA, of course. I live there with my wife and 4 kids, one of whom is actually here today. Cedric in the front row, or second row there. So, true story. It's actually take your kid to work day in the US. Seriously. You can look it up. So I figured I'd bring him 5,000 miles to my work. I am also half Finnish. My name is Swedish, so I have other Nordic countries as well, but I am half Finnish. So in honor, it's sort of like coming back to my homeland. I've never been here before, but this is sort of like coming back to my homeland. My ancestors were from here. So in honor of that, I'm actually going to do the rest of my talk in Finnish. I'm not going to do that because I don't know Finnish, but infinitered is mostly known for our React Native work, because of chain React primarily. We also do React.js. We do some backend technologies, Ruby, Elixir, which is kind of fun, and of course, React.js web. We also have a design team, but we are mostly known for our React Native work. And as Yanni mentioned, chain React. We started chain React in first year was 2017, so this is going to be our 3rd year in Portland. And we get about 500 developers there into the beautiful venue there that we have. It will be July 11th and 12th. There's a workshop day, just like React Finland, on July 10th. And it's the only React Native conference in the USA. There's also one in Europe, React Native EU, which I'm hoping to go to. So if you go there, that would be awesome. Is anybody going to Chain React this year? Yanni? Cedric? All right, all right. Well, you're all welcome. You're all welcome. There's still tickets available if you go to infinitered/chainreactconf. I also do a lot of React Native open source. I work on the React Native web view. I work with the React Native core team as well on the Lean Core initiative, which is basically where we're extracting pieces out of the React Native core and making them community supported. I talked about this a little bit in the meetup on Tuesday. And we're known for Ignite, which I work on a lot. Ignite is what this talk is about, so I'll be talking about that later. And Reactatron, you should check that out. It's for React and React Native apps. You can debug, inspect your Redux or MobX state tree state, modify things, take snapshots, replay snapshots. It's very cool. So the talk that I'm giving today is building a community around Ignite. And this is a talk that I think I've been wanting to give for a while. I think it's an important talk. Whether it's useful to you, whether you end up organizing a community or not, I think it's important that people understand what goes into building an open source community. And I want to talk specifically about what we did around Ignite. So first you have to know what Ignite is. I think actually you have to think a little bit about where infinitered was a few years ago in 2015. We had been doing native, we had been doing web and like native apps. And we started using it when React Native for Android came out in 2015, like September of 2015. And at the time we were newbies. Like we didn't know how to build a React Native app. We'd never even built a React app, much less a React Native app. And we had to sort of try to find the stack, so to speak. And remember, we had just kind of come out of the Flux wars. And then, Redux was sort of the big thing now. But what about navigation? Because, none of the web stuff worked on React Native, unfortunately. And so there were a bunch of libraries, and there was not really a a single stack that we could just go and say, okay, this is what we do. We were like originally Ruby on Rails developers, where you have to use what DHH tells you to use, sort of. And so we were like, okay, well, let's just trial some stuff. You know, let's try this stack on this project and this stack on this project. Let's see what works. And we put our heads together and came up with a stack that seemed to work. You know, using Redux, and for side effects, Redux sagas, which were pretty cool, but a little strange. And not only that, but we had to, we're a consultancy, so you know, we have all these projects, right? We have maybe 8 to 10 projects going at any one time, and we had to onboard all of these new developers within InfiniteRed onto React Native. So it made sense to build a boilerplate and a CLI to kind of support that. And so that's really what Ignite is. It's a CLI. You can see the output from, and of course I'm igniting a new sauna app because I'm in Finland, and you need more apps to find saunas here. It asks you what boilerplate you would like to use. I'll show that on the next slide, but essentially it's a CLI. So it's walking you through spinning up a brand new React Native app. We call it an unfair advantage because it tends to cut off about, we've heard anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks off the front end of your project when you're starting, as well as a lot of sort of you know, angst around like, are we using the right thing or not? So the power of this comes from our 2 boilerplates, as well as some community ones that I'll talk about. Ignite Andros and Ignite Bowser. They're in alphabetical order, named after video game villains. And so the original one we built, you know, early on using Redux and Redux sagas, and we used that for a couple of years. And then we started getting a little tired of the Redux boilerplate, started looking around for some other things, and we found MobX state tree, which is very cool. So thanks, Michelle. And that's what we started using there. We also converted over to TypeScript on that new boilerplate, and some other decisions, React Navigation, although actually Andros is now on React Navigation as well. So we do still maintain both boilerplates. You can choose either stack. If you're a Redux fan, then you can go with Andros. And if you are if you'd like to try what InfiniteRed uses, then you'd want to go with Bowser. So that's essentially what Ignite is. It's also an ecosystem. So I think this is the sort of the crux of the talk is the idea that not only can open source be just a library that you put out there and you know, hopefully people use, but also there's a lot more to it. There's plugins. We actually built it with a plugin architecture so that people can add functionality to Ignite itself. It is a third-party boilerplate, so you can, if you don't like our decisions, then you can go with somebody else's or build your own. And then it's also the community, which I'm going to be talking a lot more about. We're up to about 3,200 people in our Slack community, which, you know, we know that thousands of people are using Ignite. We know that for a fact. It's kind of proven itself out. And if I break anything, then I hear from a lot of them. So that's helpful. So the talk is building a community around Ignite, and I've really divided it up into 3 phases. I think they blur the lines between these 3 different phases somewhat, but building an open source community really kind of comes in these three phases. So the first one is build something compelling, and you're probably thinking, well, that's easy, like how to draw a turkey. Trace your hand and then draw the rest of the turkey, right? You know, that's, you know, build something compelling, easy. Well, we've done it a few times at InfiniteRed. So, you know, we have several near 10,000 star repos. We kind of know some things to avoid, some things to do. And so I'm going to talk very quickly about what that's all about. First off, build something you would use. That seems pretty obvious, but don't build it for someone else. Like, build it for you, right? Like, that's where you want to start. Anytime I've ever tried to build a library and been like, yeah, this is going to be really popular, I'm going to put it out there, it's kind of a cool idea, but I don't actually intend to use it in myself, it'll go nowhere. It really doesn't. Not only that, but build something that you do use. And this is the part that I think is really key. when you use it, no matter how good the idea is, you're going to actually have a moment where you're going to realize it's crap. You need to go back and like continue to iterate on it. And you only get that tight feedback loop if you use it internally. At InfiniteRed with Ignite, we built it for us. And so we were actually using Ignite to onboard our new developers, and we would hear from them if there were problems. We felt the pain of using it, and then we would be motivated then to fix it because we actually had internal customers, so to speak. We're a team of about 30. We're fully distributed, and so we would have people, saying, "Hey, this CLI command doesn't work," or "This boilerplate, I don't understand how to use this part of it." And then we'd have to add documentation or comments or generators or examples or anything like that. Also, feeling the joy is important because that keeps the energy up all the way through the project. If you don't put time into it, why should anyone else? I think that's important. Building an open source thing, I think for me is about building a movement of people who would be invested in the open source. And the only way to really do that is if you have felt the joy of it and the pain of it and been able to kind of sand off the rough edges and make something very compelling. So we did need it at InfiniteRed. We implemented sort of the tight feedback loops of hey, this is not working, and let's iterate, let's make it better. And we also used it on dozens of InfiniteRed client projects. So we actually had to ship. And that's really important because once you have to ship, you can't ignore that little kind of annoying problem that's going to take 2 weeks to figure out how to do it. You actually have to do it to get the app onto the App Store. We didn't just focus on InfiniteRed. We also made it extensible. About a year into its development, we rewrote it. We built a new library called GlueGun, which actually Juha actually used to build that React Native CLI library tool that he made. And we open sourced that as well. And we made that sort of like with community built in, so you can immediately get third-party boilerplates, plugins, and component generators right out of the box. This has been really helpful because not everybody's going to agree with our decisions, even though they're sort of battle tested. And it's like, yeah, I mean, if you use an InfiniteRed boilerplate, we've shipped apps with this, so you can too, right? We're not really smarter than you. I'm sure that you could figure this out, but some people have different needs. So for example, we have a third-party boilerplate called Ignite JHipster, which comes from Java Spring Hipster, Java Hipster. And they have different needs, and so they've built their own boilerplate. The second phase, I'm kind of lumping 3 things together that I think are all kind of bundled in the same activities that you do, and that is branding, marketing, and inviting people to your community. So you're trying to build energy. Now you have this compelling open source project, and you want to build energy around it. I'll talk about why at the end of the talk, but a brand evokes a feeling. I think that's really important. Just naming it like React Native boilerplate might have worked, I guess, but it doesn't really evoke a feeling. And when you read words like Gatsby or Apollo, you sort of get a feeling from that because you've heard those names, you've heard those brands before, you've maybe even experimented with them, and you think about that. It kind of encapsulates a whole concept. And so that's where we came up with the name Ignite. I think it works really well. It's sort of like the start of something, it's sparking something. And we came up with a logo as well. This is the logo. We use that for t-shirts and stickers and all those other things that we like to do at InfiniteRed. So we had this brand, and then we wanted somewhere for people to congregate. We started with Gator, and Gator is interesting. It's all right. The concept is really good. It essentially connects a chat room with a particular GitHub organization or repo, actually. But we quickly outgrew it. It became really hard to stay up on, and we were really Slack fans at that time anyway. And so we ended up switching over to Slack. Since that time, a couple other good ones have come out. Discord and Spectrum actually looks pretty cool as well. It's all about building communities, but we've stuck with Slack, and so far we like it. So making a space was important, but we also had to get people there. And this is sort of a piece that people sort of forget about a little bit. You actually have to invite people to your community and make them feel like you actually want them there. So we were writing, blog posts and giving talks at meetups and at conferences and creating YouTube videos. One YouTube video was how to create a React Native app in like 15 minutes, which was very popular. Gant Laborde, who I work with at infinitered, he was actually here at React Finland last year. He made that video and it did very well. But everywhere we did that, we would link over to the onboarding form. And not only would we link to it, but we would also tell people what they could expect when they got there. So it was important that people understood, like, why would I even go there? Do I need another Slack? But I think that inviting people in every place and just making sure you have that little paragraph that says, hey, if you want to like connect with our community and be a part of this, this cool thing, go here. Because people onboard at all different places. You can't expect them to all go through a particular entry point. One of the more interesting things we did, once you've ignited a particular app here, then here's the output. And we actually put right in there, join our Slack community at community.infinite.red. We gave them a reason as well. Need additional help? Like we're here to help. And it's an invitation. So when we did this, people started really flooding into our Slack community. We were watching people onboarding into the team, and that was really exciting. It actually gave us a lot of energy to see people using Ignite, popping in, saying, "Hey, I'm using Ignite for this. Maybe I'm having a problem." You do hear about their problems a lot, but it's also really cool to see that people are using your library. So that brings us to our third phase, and that is about community care. So it's not enough to bring people into a community. It's also really important that you, oops. Let me back up a second here. All right, there we go. That you welcome them into the community. So I'm sure you've all had an instance where you've walked up to sort of a circle of friends, especially if you're maybe a little bit more reserved. And as a half Finn, even though I'm an extrovert, I'm still a little reserved. Walk up to a circle of people, and they're all friends, and they sort of just ignore you, or they continue their conversation or whatever, and you're just kind of feeling like an outsider. So what we did early on with the Ignite community was we actually tagged people that were coming in and said, hey, welcome, thanks for joining our community, really glad you're here. Just saying that. And I think that was really important to people. It wasn't automated, it was just we would go in there and see who's joined lately, tag them all, say, hey, welcome. We also set expectations, and I think this is really a good thing. You want to make sure that you have clear expectations as to behavior in your community, because individuals can ruin it for the rest of the group. Establish rules. It's really great to have a code of conduct. It's really great to have a set of rules that you enforce. And actually, one of the things that moderators tend to get wrong in online communities is that they actually tend to under-moderate. They're a little afraid of being accused of censoring people or whatever, being heavy-handed. But what I found, and I've actually run other online communities in the past as well, one with about 4,000 people in it. Initially, when people kind of come in, there are going to be people that sort of test the boundaries, like where are the edges, and you want to make sure you set those edges very clearly and that you will enforce them. And what happens is after you do that a few times, the community starts policing itself. It becomes less work over time because the norms have been set. They know that the moderators got their back, and they're going to say, that's not cool. So make sure you do that. Do that early and do it often, and it'll make your job easier later on because you don't want to deal with a big cesspool of just trolls and whatever. I think it's also a really good idea to continue to feed the community with new fuel. It's got to continue to be something that they know that you're invested in. So one of the things I'll do is I'll just come in and answer some questions. There's always questions. There are always questions in there, and I'll just go through and I'll scroll through and I'll find something that catches my eye, and I'll ask follow-up questions, or if I know, I'll answer it, or I'll ping someone in the infinitered team and say, hey, can you take a look at this? This signals to the rest of the community that you are that you care about it. That it isn't just sort of like a thing you set up and then forgot about. But don't try to answer all the questions. That is a recipe for burning out. We tried to do that early on, and that was a mistake. Just pick and choose. The ones that you know the answer to, do that. I think that once you get a sort of a rhythm going, people understand you're not going to answer everything, but you will pop up once in a while. And then what happens is when others in the group see that, okay, Jamon's not going to answer every question, well, maybe I should answer that because I know that answer. And so it actually invites other people to contribute. And what we found is that we had a whole pile of people that have started to help each other within the infinitered community. That's actually been one of the more interesting things is that people become experts in the thing that we created, Ignite. So we definitely try to answer questions, but not all. Also, getting to know individuals, I think, is it's sort of my style, I guess. I like to know people. I like to know individuals rather than just a group. Like, I've met many of you. I've shook your hands. I've even maybe taken down your names and connected with you on Twitter because I like one-to-one, conversations. And I do that on the online community as well. I'm like, hey, where are you from? What are you doing? And just sort of like connect with them on that level. You don't have to do it. You don't have to do it with everybody. Obviously, that's impossible. But I do think that that's part of community care. Also, just pop in and say good morning sometimes. Like that takes very little effort, but it's like, hey, here's sort of the creator of the community coming in and saying, hey, everybody, welcome, friends. It's very cool to see you. I also announced new features in the Slack team. So this is something where whenever I have something new, I know that people that are using Ignite are invested in the progress that we're making. So I've been working on a TypeScript conversion for the CLI itself. The boilerplate itself has been upgraded to TypeScript. When you generate a new browser app, it'll actually use TypeScript, but I hadn't used it on the CLI yet. So I went through the process of converting it over to TypeScript. Went really well, loved it. It enabled me to upgrade some packages with confidence. And so as I was doing that, I was keeping the community informed. I would say, hey, here's a new beta out. It's been released. Please let me know if there's any issues. And that way they know that not only will they get sort of their questions answered, but they'll also get things pushed to them like, hey, there's new releases. And it's really good to involve them in sort of a smaller circle where you're not just blasting it out into Twitter, but you sort of know these people a little bit and they know you. And treating them like friends, I think that kind of goes back to my earlier point about connecting with people individually. These are your friends. They're not customers because this is open source. You're not getting paid for it. And so I treat them like friends, and hopefully they treat you as well, the same way as well. We also, through Ignite itself and also with how we responded, supported the community solutions that would pop up. So new third-party boilerplates would pop up, and we would support them by giving them advice or feedback, helping promote them, say, hey, there's a new third-party boilerplate, check this out, it's very cool. Kind of amplifying their message and showing that we weren't just interested in the infinitered solutions that came out of this. It was sort of a group effort, that there were other things that were interesting coming out of it. And everything that the community did, like plugins, and even like speaking at conferences about Ignite, all those things strengthen the overall brand of Ignite and the community around it. So giving the community support and encouragement was a big part of this. I also like to go past the online chat part of this and invited people to Chain React, the conference that we put on. And when we'd see them at Chain React, be like, hey, very cool to me. Give them a big hug. It's like, you know, you're part of the online community, but now I actually get a chance to meet you in person. I've actually met a few people from the infinitered Slack here at this conference, which has been awesome. We also send swag to people who are especially helpful, and that's been very cool. It's nice to see people tweet out, "Hey, here's my infinitered mug." This is something I think I need to do a better job of, but automating things. Don't automate everything. I like the personal human touch, and developers are really good at sniffing out when you are automating things. Just if you say hi at 9:00 a.m. every single morning, you're probably automating that. So don't do that. But do automate some things, and I'm actually excited to implement some of the things that David, who's here today. Thank you, David. He's actually doing the sketch notes, so go to follow React Finland on Twitter. You'll see some of David's awesome drawings. But he wrote an article. You can look at tiny.cc/community-automation. That's a short URL. That'll go to his article that talks about automating Slack communities and how you can do that to drive more engagement and get to know people a little better. And I'm excited to dive into some of that stuff. So what's been the impact of putting all this effort? Because it was a lot of effort. You know, why would we even do this? We have, as I said, over 3,000 people now involved in the Ignite community and infinitered community in general. We get lively discussions every day. There's a ton that I'm missing because I'm at the conference right now. But there are people talking about all kinds of things, not just Ignite, other tech, just random stuff. There are really funny people in there. It's really great. There's new friends, new relationships that you get to kind of expand upon once you see people in person. So those are all really important to us. I'm a big believer in using the tech community as just a broader sort of group that you can be connected with. We've also recruited infinitered team members from this Slack team. We don't hire very often. We're much smaller than teams like Formidable or Go4. We're only 30 people, and we grow very, very, very slowly on purpose. We have the opportunity to grow faster, but this is just how we are. So think about getting to know someone and how they interact with other people and watching how they interact with other people over the course of weeks or even months, and how much different that is than you know, like an hour interview or whatever. We've been able to see like what the true character of people are by watching how they interact with other people, and also see what their technical chops are, as well as there are some designers in there. So that's been really, really valuable to us because of how careful we are in hiring. We also get community referrals for projects. Not only are we evaluating them, but they're also evaluating how we interact. All of the infinitered team members have a little infinitered logo badge next to their name, and they're seeing how do these people treat us. And if they get a chance to, like, you know, talk to someone who needs a React Native or React app, and they're asking for recommendations, they say, well, we know a company, and we like how they interact with us. We've made meaningful connections with people all around the world, so many different countries, and not just like drive by, like just checking out the community, but actually people who contribute every day. In all kinds of different, I mean, it's been amazing. It gives you sort of a perspective that you might not otherwise have. I mean, there's a guy named Sajjad from Iran who has been working on some Ignite-related like desktop apps and his own boilerplate, and just like doing this all from a connection that's like dial-up speed, like unbelievable. And you know, in a country that is sort of like closed off from a lot of the world, he's making this happen. It's really amazing to see, and he's in there almost every day, showing what he's working on. Probably waiting for a long time to upload the latest screen grab of something that he's created. It's so cool to see, and I would never get that chance without this Slack community. And I think one of the more striking pieces of building this community and why this has been worth it to us is that it's helped keep Ignite healthy. And I'm talking issue reports, pull requests, as well as just energy around it. So within infinitered, we get busy sometimes. You know, we have a full plate, We have projects, all of our projects are taken up. Everybody's working. Nobody's actually spinning up a new app because, we're partway through all of our projects. We don't have a need for that. But we have this great set of people, developers, that are looking at what we built. They're relying on it. Maybe they're other agencies like us, and they're spinning up new apps all the time. Perhaps they are people who are learning Ignite for the first time, React Native for the first time, just as we were in 2015. We've been doing it a while. We could probably build a new React Native app from scratch, in a relatively straightforward manner. But these are brand new people. They're wondering the same things that we did. What is the stack that I should use? Not that our opinions are above everybody else's, but we have proven them. We've shipped apps, and that's worth something. And getting issue reports and also just pinged in the community that, hey, I tried the beta and it didn't work. There's just a lot of value in that and energy. If you send something out into the void and you just don't get any response, then it's a little bit hard to be motivated to work on it. But when I hear that people are using our open source, then it's great. So you can learn more by going to github.com/infinitered/ignite. That is the main repo. There's also the boilerplate repos. It links out from there. You can learn more about Infinite Red at infinite.red. You can learn more about Chain React by going to infinite.red/chainreactconf. I really hope that you're there. We are still selling tickets, and it's a great conference. I think you'd really enjoy it. If you like React Finland, I think you'd really like Chain React as well. And of course, I can't go without saying where to go with our community, community.infinite.red. You can find me on Twitter at Jamon Holmgren. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.